Good morning and welcome to our February 25th Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. First of all, we are going to, please join me for a moment of silence, and then we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by a group of veterans, Scott Brune, who's a Marine, John Colando, who's an Army vet, Jim Walton, who is an Army vet, Jamila Gully, who's a Navy vet, Chris Counselor, Navy, and retired Coast Guard. And so please join us for a moment of silence, followed by the people who are leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you. Now, veterans, please come to the podium.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Gully, I presume?
Yes, good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Jamila Gully. I was in the Navy, and I was volunteered to tell you guys just a little story. All right, so I did join the Navy right out of high school. It was about 1999, long time ago. So I was in the delayed entry program to study for the ASVAB to make sure that I could join. And so I passed that, and I found myself at my first duty station at about the year 2000, right about March or so, which was fun. Just in the Navy, generally, when you're about E3 and below, you're referred to by your rank. So it goes, not everybody gets to be a seaman. Air-rated entries are known as airmen, and engineering types are firemen. So I was a fireman. It's important, just for the story, that you guys know that I suffer a little bit from motion sickness. So, Navy, motion sickness. Keep that in mind. So we were on our first workups for our ship, and since I joined, and the motion sickness was not great. And I had forgotten to take my medication, so I was running around with a pack of crackers, saltines. And my division officer came by, looked at us, sees me with the crackers, never remembered my name, always called me fireman. So he sees me, fireman cracker.
Hey.
That is who I am. All the way up through, even when I got my actual E4 rank, I was known as GSM 3 cracker to him. So to this day, I don't think he ever remembered my name, but that's fine. I have been here with Martin County as a building support technician for about 3 years, since about 2022. And I've been enjoying my time here, so thank
Excellent.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
you. Have a great day. You're welcome.
Who's next?
Good morning.
Morning.
How's everybody today?
Great.
I was a Marine. I joined in '83, got honorably discharged in '87. I served in 6 different countries. That's about it.
That's it. Boiled it right down.
That
That's
was
how
enough.
Marines talk. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all we have today. Thank you so much.
That's it?
Thank you. Our agenda doesn't tell us that we're going to have a preset, but we're going to start out taking things a little bit out of order. We're going to start with item, Department 3.
Comment? No public comment?
Yeah, that's coming.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. There's one proclamation, and that is a proclamation declaring 211 Awareness Month. Ms. Beaupre.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tens of thousands of people reach out to 211 Helpline each year. 211 is that central access number where individuals and families, people of all ages and walks of life, can find life-saving crisis support, guidance, and hope. 211's caring staff listen to each and every person to provide available resource options and to help them strategize and problem solve. In recognition of February as 211 Awareness Month, the board urges all citizens to be aware that if they are overwhelmed and in crisis or just need to talk, 211 is available any time of the day or night. And here to accept, we have Chad Adcock, who is Community Outreach Representative, along with a lovely board member.
Like to join us? Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Excellent, thank you.
Take a picture.
Very few people have to duck under the TVs. Yes.
So, yes, thank you, commissioners and staff. I want to continue to thank you for the support that you've always shown to the critical work that we do at 211. And I just want to kind of give you a couple of little things really quick, and then I'm here with Kathleen Hillman. She's one of our board members and a Martin County resident. So I'm a Martin County resident too, and have been for a long time, 2008. So it's been going back. I guess I can consider this my home now.
Yes, you can.
I'll start with a couple of statistics, and then I'll finish with a story, and then let Kathleen share if she'd like to. Some people have the misconception that at 211 we may only take a few calls a day, and we just got our numbers for the previous year, and we've taken approximately 200,000 calls in the last year. And of those calls, about 3% of that are from Martin County residents, which, if my quick math comes to about 6,000 calls a year come from Martin County residents. So I would like that number to be a lot higher. Not because I want the need to be stronger, but because I know the needs are there, and that more people need to be aware of the services that are available to them. So the types of calls that we're seeing are I'm sure the types of concerns that you deal with on a daily basis: mental health concerns, housing concerns, utility concerns. Those are the top three. Substance abuse as well. And then, we're getting all types of calls, not just for assessment and referral, but also for information. And sometimes people just call just because they need somebody to talk to. They need some counseling and someone to talk to right now. And then lastly, I'll tell you a quick story. This is actually a true story. One of the callers that we received in the last quarter was from an elderly gentleman, I'll call him Lawrence, in his 70s, was feeling sad and lonely, and he called our resource center specialist, and he spoke with Jamie. And she started listening to what he had to say, which is the most important thing that they do in the office. They listen, and they hear whatever it is that you have to say. So she listened and asked more questions and learned that Lawrence was living alone, as a lot of seniors are in this area, and that he was no longer able to drive to his appointments. And if you've ever had a loved one or someone that you cared for that went through that, you know how difficult that is. We have our keys in our pockets that allow us to get in our car and travel wherever we want to. When you lose that as an adult, it's very challenging, and Lawrence was facing that. So Jamie listened. She referred him to several agencies to get him assistance to his appointments, his medical appointments, to go get his groceries and whatever he needed. And she also got him signed up for my favorite program that we do, the Sunshine Daily Check-In Calls, where anybody over the age of 60 can get a free daily check-in call to make sure that they're doing okay. I wish they would lower it to like 45 so I could get one of those calls too. But one day we'll get there.
That's right.
And Lawrence is excited now because he gets that daily check-in call, and he knows that if he's struggling anytime between those calls, he can still call back for free and speak to somebody in the office to be able to just listen. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do, and I'll turn it over to Kathleen if she wants to say anything. If you are struggling with anything, whatever your storm might be, anybody that's hearing my voice, call 211. It's free, it's available 24/7, 365 days. So thank you again, Commissioners.
And I just want to thank you all for your support very much. As a person who had a son who's no longer with us, I wish 211 had been around at the time to help him, and they weren't, which got me involved in 211. He was depressed all the time and wouldn't go for help. So I thank you for your help, and I thank 211 for calling my mother every day to make sure she's still alive and kicking and ornery. And she gets on the phone and talks to her for 30 minutes every time. I'm sure she makes him crazy, but I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for your support of 211. It means so much to us and me personally. So thank you very much, Commissioners and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
That's all, say 6'5".
Yeah, he's afraid.
Broken arm.
You don't chop his head. Yeah, I promise I won't chop your head off.
1, 2, 3.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
blessed day. Thank
You
you so
too.
much.
Okay, now we'll take up public comments. The first speaker I have is Lawrence Lieb, followed by Jeff Order.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here to speak on some Section 2 Fork River Estates issues. I was here back 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess. So I wrote down my thoughts. My name is Lawrence Lieb, and I'm a property owner in Fork River Estates Section 2. In 1979, an HOA was formed in our community and was dissolved in 1987. In 2007 to 2008, an association was illegally reinstated by Ronald Joseph French, known as Joe French, to sign over our property rights to Martin County in order to facilitate Section 2 to get on county water and sewer due to an issue with a maladjusted weir in the Tray Bell retention pond. I have in my possession 2 statements signed and notarized by landowners in our community whose names were forged on the HOA reinstatement by Joe French. More recently, Joe French tried to sell our buffer strip to Marion Broom, a swindler. The Martin County Sheriff and Mr. Broom had Mr. Broom sign the land back to us in 2022. Now to SFHUC, South Fork Homeowners Utility, members are once again trying to reinstate our HOA behind our backs to facilitate the signing of a right-of-way to allow for water and sewer line repairs. We are in agreement to that only if the county includes taking over our roads, which are private, which was undisclosed to us by various realtors when we bought into the community. State law says that an HOA can only be formed with a 66% majority of all balloted votes. I have a petition with 33 of 52 homeowners voting no on HOA reinstatement, 0 voting yes, and 19 unable to contact so far. The people want another, 0 people want another HOA doing business for our community. We are, however, in favor of a county ballot as long as the road issue is addressed with the water and sewer transition. Thank you very much. And I have some papers here, if you all would like copies. I don't have the copies, though.
Oh.
So I can get them copied and maybe get them to you, Sarah,
Okay,
if you want me to.
sure.
And it's everything I've said, the signed, notarized documents, so forth. So
Okay,
thank you very much.
thank you. Jeff Order is next, followed by Samantha Suffich.
Good morning. Thank
morning.
you for your time. I appreciate it. Yesterday afternoon, I live on Old St. Lucie Boulevard. I'm north of the flight pattern. by the water. I'm very fortunate to have bought this home 8 years ago, and I love the home. And I've not really had problems with the airport in the past. Unfortunately, things have gotten really bad, and I need to share with you what's going on, because I don't think anybody knows. Yesterday afternoon, a jet flew over our house. It was 100 feet over our house. It banked hard. We're north of the flight path, but they banked hard over our house and shook our house. That was preceded by a plane that woke me up at midnight, a plane that woke me up at 1:40 in the morning, a jet that blew by at 5 a.m., 2 additional jets that blew by before 7 a.m., and 2 prop planes. There were 4,858 non-exempt violations in 2024. That's more than 13 a night, more than 5 times the number of violations that happened when I moved into my home. And these violations are much worse because a lot of them are jets and they're low flying. We can't sleep. Light comes into our house and into our bedroom on our second floor because the flights now have they fly so low that the lights are like lighting our home up like it's a daylight. The sound is unbelievable day and night. Because the jets are flying so low, we have black pollution, not only all over our house and our cars and our boats, but in our lungs. It's become like we're living next to a major airport. I tried to work through ANAC. I went to the ANAC meeting, but unfortunately ANAC has become a farce. In July, I went there, and they didn't have enough people for a quorum. I went in the fall and pointed out that there was no signage at all for the curfew violations. And only then did the airport in the winter say, oh, well, we're going to do signs based on your recommendations. But I question, why do I even have to recommend putting signs up if indeed the airport has the intention of being a good community airport? The golf course next to it, unfortunately, had all the shrubs and bushes around the runway and around the perimeter of the golf course taken down. This was a problem because it stopped the sound barrier that existed. So now I can hear all the things that are going on in the airport. But what's worse is there's a thing called the 65 dB DNL. It is a regulation put out by the FAA to ensure that people can live within the airport. I pointed this out at the last ANAC meeting, and they didn't know what it was, and John Chickey defended the testing of the airport, but not recognizing that what I was describing was not on-airport sound, but a barrier around the airport. The 65 dB DNL is a circumference around the airport to make sure people can live there. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll share with you that the FAA has to be contacted. We had 6 near misses in terms of accidents, 3 sonic booms from the airport show. We've had touch and goes that are 8 and 10 times rather than the 3 that are there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Samantha Suffich is next, followed by Tom Pine. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Samantha Suffich. I am here today on behalf of Martin County Healthy Start Coalition to discuss an urgent need in our community, ensuring that we have access to local maternity care as our birth rates continue to increase. As you know, Cleveland Clinic Martin North is closing its labor and delivery unit on April 1st. This means that families in Martin County will have to travel to Port St. Lucie or Jupiter to give birth, despite the fact that our county's birth rate is increasing. Without a local solution, we risk overburdening our regional healthcare system, decreasing the health and safety for mothers and babies, and creating unnecessary barriers to care for families who deserve to give birth close to home. Maternity care is a fundamental part of a strong community infrastructure. The health of mothers and infants directly impacts our economy, workforce, and overall quality of life. Communities with accessible maternity services see better birth outcomes, healthier families, and a stronger local support system. Recognizing this need, Representative Overdorf and Senator Harrell have appropriated $2 million of state funding to help establish a new maternity care center in Martin County. To move forward efficiently, we need to identify a suitable location as soon as possible. Today, I'm here to request that Martin County Healthy Start Coalition enter into an agreement with the county to formally discuss the option of leasing a portion of unused county-owned land that is adjacent to Cleveland Clinic, Martin's South Hospital, for this project. This location would provide convenient access to families, keep maternity care within our community, ensure that we are prepared to support the growing number of births in Martin County. This is an opportunity for collaboration between a public and private partnership and to address a proactive planning to ensure that Martin County remains a place where families can grow and thrive with the healthcare resources they need right here at home. So I respectfully ask for your support in moving forward with this conversation. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Commissioner Campy.
Ms. Suffich, thank you very much. You're obviously bringing forward an issue that's very important to the community. I've been following, actually with you, and following along with Dr. Singh at the hospital. I've watched the City of Stewart Commission meetings where he came and presented. I watched Stephen Layton's Facebook Live with Dr. Singh, and I know that it will take a collaboration. I know that one party won't be able to handle it, and I have had the opportunity to read what you had sent, and I agree. The county can't stand back and watch it happen in front of us. If there's an active role that the county government can be playing, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but we have two folks over here, Mr. Donaldson and Miss Woods. She'll help us figure out how we legally do it. He'll help us figure out how we actually do it. And to have you and your organization who have been doing this for years, it's not something that we can just hope goes away. It won't. And I'll tell you, since it's sort of popped up, the residents that I've spoken to are real, it's probably their number one issue. So I appreciate you coming forward, and you have, at least from my perspective, support to engage our staff in a possible solution.
Including working with Representative Oberdorf and
Absolutely.
Senator Harrell.
I have had a conversation with Senator Harrell. This is even since what happened out in Indiantown with community health, this is, her late husband was a OBGYN. She's got, really has the heart for this. And with Representative Oberdorf and Snyder, I think you're well on your way. So I would hope that my colleagues, which I'm sure they would, and our staff can be partners with you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thanks. Thanks. Next up is Tom Pine, and Mr. Pine is the last request to speak form that I have. If you wish to address us, please fill out a form and give it to the bailiff. Morning, Mr. Pine.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Tom Pine. I live in the Jensen Beach area. I've been a resident of Martin County for over 50 years. The definition of the consent agenda is a tool used to streamline meeting procedures by collecting routine, controversial items into a group whereby all are passed in a single motion and vote. The word here is routine contracts for new the key word here is routine. Contracts for new projects are not routine. The county government spends millions and millions of our tax dollars in the consent agenda in a misleading way. Many of the contracts for work throughout the county and special deals for the Friends of the Chamber of Commerce are not routine expenditures. A couple of meetings ago, we, the taxpayers of Martin County, got a good lesson on how the good old boys in Martin County get major financial edge whenever our county government sells county-owned property. Will we ever get an update on the pending land sale in Palm City that the county bought in order to stop a development that was unpopular with local residents on State Road 714? Or will it be hidden in the consent agenda? One of the newly elected commissioners spoke at their last meeting about a visit to the Volunteers in Medicine and was thankful and impressed by their work. He also talked about how high the threshold was to receive service, unlike the Community Redevelopment Agency that gives out $20,000 grants like popcorn. I was recently given a different look at the Community Redevelopment Agency while I was at the last county commission meeting. I was told they don't do any financial checks because most of the business owners and landowners couldn't qualify for financial aid. They're too wealthy already. So the scheme continues to give the wealthier among us our tax dollars to encourage them to clean up their properties as the rich get richer and the working class foots the bill. What you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. What you condone, you own. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comments. Commissioner Hetherington, do you have any public comments or commissioner comments?
Regretfully, I had to miss yesterday's MPO due to some health reasons, but I just wanted to chime in on one of the conversations that you talked about, and that was maybe two. There was some commentary on the 710 Alapata 609 traffic signal, and that is in the list of priorities. I know Mayor DiPaolo had a good suggestion. I think that might be a long-term suggestion, because in that suggestion was to take 609 and align it with Martin Luther King and have a four-way signal there, or a signal. I think that's a great suggestion. I think that is probably more along the line 710 gets widened, because that's going to take some time. But in the meantime, that stretch of the road, that intersection, is highly dangerous. And I suggest, my input, since I wasn't there yesterday, is to keep that on the highest priority of the MPO, to see if we can get that intersection signalized, because I've seen, and I travel that intersection a lot, I've seen seven cars traveling eastbound passing while people are waiting to turn left onto 609, and 609 cars are trying to turn onto 710 eastbound. It's a really dangerous road. So my input based on yesterday's MPO meeting was that we prioritize that as we have in our list of priorities, and try to get that signalized intersection, because realistically, the widening is going to be, at best, maybe 5 years, if not 7 to 10. And I don't think that stretch of the road can wait 7 to 10 years for a signalized intersection without a major fatality. So that was my...
More fatalities.
More fatalities. And that intersection is really dangerous. So that was my input from yesterday's MPO, as well as thanking the board for Fisherman's Cove sidewalks. They've been asking for a long time. Also a very dangerous stretch of pedestrian. There's many, many bus stops. So I thank you for moving that project forward yesterday. That's all I have.
Commissioner Campy.
I'm fine.
Commissioner Capps.
Good morning to everyone. And I want to begin by thanking staff for all the hard work they do to prepare our agendas and documents for these meetings. These are the documents for this meeting, which are kind of typical. There are so many of them that they don't fit in one binder. And it's like they have to write a book every 2 weeks. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I want to mention a few things that I've been involved with in the last 2 weeks. On the 13th, I got to speak at the Hobe Sound Chamber Breakfast, which was a highlight for me. It's a group that I've been involved with for many years. And I was able to give an overview of issues that will be affecting District 3 and countywide issues as well. That was fun. And that same afternoon, we took a Parks and Rec tour with Kevin Abate and Kevin Kerwin of several of our parks. And that was very enlightening. On the 15th, we attended the Economic Council installation dinner at the Reach Center at Witham Field. The Reach Center is going to be a training place for aviation workers, and it was interesting to see their plans that they're laying out for the remodeling of that building, and the way they will be able to help as a feeder for jobs at Witham Field in the coming days. On the 18th, I got to tour the Kane Center with Karen Ripper, who runs the place. And that's also called the Council of Aging. And it's amazing to see the work that they do with our seniors and in providing preventative care that keeps our seniors out of hospitals and emergency rooms. That was, to me, the big takeaway from that encounter, was learning how they actually saved the county a bunch of money, because if all of these seniors were constantly running to the hospitals and the ER, our tab for that would rise exponentially. So good work to those good folks. And then on the 20th, we had the State of the County address at New Hope Fellowship. And excellent job by Chair Hurd and county staff. That was a very impressive and very funny video that was shown. That event seems to have a sort of a comic flair to it, and it was a fun event. And the purpose of that event, of course, is to show the county's accomplishments in the last year. And then late this last week, I had the privilege of being involved in some Little League opening ceremonies. The first one was at Martin County North at Howpatioke Park on Friday evening. I couldn't believe how many parents and kids were there. It's interesting to see what our residents are involved in and what they're passionate about. And it's been many years since we had kids small enough to be involved in that kind of thing. It was just neat to see those folks' investment in our young baseball players. And then on Saturday morning, we did the same thing in Hobe Sound. The opening ceremonies for Hobe Sound Little League at Reed Park in Hobe Sound. And that was a lot of fun as well. Let's see, I also wanted to mention yesterday we had an MPO visioning event at Hobe Sound Civic Center. It was Vision 2050, I believe it's called. And I would just like to brag on the MPO folks. That was a very well put together event and exercise. There were these placard stations that explained the various MPO initiatives, and there were these little boxes beside the placards where the participants were given $5 $20 bills to drop in boxes into things that you thought were a higher priority for transportation in the coming days. And it was a fun exercise and very enlightening and a great learning experience, and it was very, very well done. So I'll end with another positive note, and that is that the traffic light at Constitution Boulevard and US 1 in Hobe Sound they have begun work on that, and that will be coming very soon. I want to thank current commissioners and prior commissioners who were involved in making that happen. That's something that really needs to occur in Hobe Sound, and we're very excited to get a new traffic light. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Vargas.
Okay, yes, that's really hard to follow because he has a huge list. I was at some of those events, so I will defer to Commissioner Capps to also include me in some of those. But I did visit Volunteers in Medicine, and their motto is everyone should have access to quality health care. I was very impressed. My family has medical background, and so I understand what it takes to run a clinic and be a physician anywhere today. I also went to the Loggerhead Marine Life Center, which promotes conservation of ocean ecosystems with special focus on threatened endangered sea turtles through research, rehabilitation, and educational programs. They currently, when I was there, had 45 turtles that they were nursing back to health. Really, they should have 25. Some will remain with them, and others will be released. It's a wonderful program. I also went on to Florida Oceanographic Coastal Center on Hutchinson Island. That's 57 acres, marine life ecosystems with interactive exhibits and aquarium, inspiring through education and research. And, you know, these two localities, they really resonate deeply with most of the citizens of Martin County, especially those that love the beach area and the water. And so there's potential for development of another center on Hutchinson Island, which is in the works presently. In addition to that, we're going to be raising the Jensen Beach bathrooms and the facilities, making them brand new and better than ever, and we'll keep you posted on that. The other thing that I had the pleasure and the excitement to do was canine with Martin County Sheriff's Department. I'm telling you, they are rock stars, and they have handlers that are Olympic status. And we watched them go through their training exercises, commands, jumping, vehicle search, suspect apprehension. One of those spectacular canines is called Kane, like short for hurricane, like, University of Miami. It's all about the U. Anyway, he was featured this past week apprehending a suspect in Hobe Sound, and he understands French. So that is one good dog. But I was at the MPO meeting yesterday, and I'm familiar with the intersection that Commissioner Hetherington referred to, MLK Boulevard, 609 and 710. I think it's much needed there. There have been too many fatalities in the area, and Mayor DiPaolo said this would be with developer participation, as that area is growing leaps and bounds. So that's what I did just this past week,
Thank you.
in addition to studying the books, too.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes, Commissioner, last meeting, we had an issue regarding road opening, and we're prepared to give you an update on our road opening process, and in particular, what happened regarding Mango Terrace, and I can do that now or at the end of the meeting, your choice.
It works now, right?
Yes.
So I think it's important to note that, properties have been created throughout Martin County's history and throughout the time the state of Florida was formed. And how that property was created for legal sale has changed throughout the laws of Florida. And so it's important to note that a property created in 1900 or one that created in 2000 or 2025 still it contains rights, and they retain those rights in perpetuity. And so it's important to note that when a property may have a lot boundary, a road, a paper road in the case it may not be open, there are rights that go with it. And I think these road openings really hit at the heart of some of the both property rights and the right of government to ensure that there are proper facilities prior to giving a building permit. So that's just, a very high-level overview, but it's important to note that there are regulatory components a lot regarding this, and there's very, very minimal legislative, if you will, part of this process when people are coming for approval. So I'm going to ask staff just to give a brief update on the road opening process and what they're looking for, so that they can ensure that when matters like this come before you, I can tell you that there's no fast rule you can say that every road opening is going to proceed like this, because depending upon when the property was created, what the circumstances of in condition when they're there, that's why I think it's important that while the public might think that this is more of a regulatory and why does it come to the board, it's the Board of County Commissioners, our elected officials, opportunity to look to ensure that all options were considered for staff and to represent the public at large in the event that staff missed something, et cetera. So you play an important role. Sometimes these come before you and it seems like there's very little choice. Some other ones, on other circumstances, there is more than one way to solve the puzzle. So, and I think in Mango Terrace, there was really very limited means to actually address the property rights in that particular case. But in all circumstances, that's not the case. So, let our county engineer and deputy county attorney speak to the issue. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Michael Grzelka, County Engineer. It's a very straightforward process to open roads based on the existing platted rights-of-ways. We do require the applicants to come forward and construct the road to current county standards and to current county right-of-way widths when available. We typically, there's a lot of roads, especially in Palm City Farms and some of the older early 1900s plats. They're all platted as 30-foot rights-of-ways. Today, our minimum right-of-way width is 50 feet with curb and gutter, 60 feet with swales. So we do require those people to, where it's feasible, where they actually own the property, to donate the additional right-of-way so that they can then construct the road to current county standards. We have like Mango Terrace, there's places where we just they don't own the property, they don't have the right to be able to bring it up to a standard, so therefore that a variance is in the code. There's a variance procedure in the code that the board can then grant that variance to allow that road to be built in the current today's substandard right-of-way widths. But like I said, majority of the time, most of the property owners have the ability to donate the right-of-way, and then it becomes just a straightforward of a road design and road construction type project to open up those existing lots of record. I don't know if you.
So I can say situations like Mango Terrace, when a property is platted in the 1950s, the road was also platted in the 1950s, so the entitlement to use the road occurred in the 50s. It's not like this board is granting them an entitlement to use the road. So since the 50s, the standards for the roads have changed, and it went from 30-foot right-of-way to 50-foot right-of-way requirement, and that's why that provision was included in our code to address these situations, because you can't take that entitlement away. You have to accommodate it. So if a property owner shows that there is a platted right-of-way and a platted property prior to 1972, the board grants the variance. So there's not a lot of discretion, and in Mango Terrace, it was even less discretion because the right-of-way was platted in the 50s all the way across, but to the east, it was abandoned by the county. So in Mango Terrace's situation, Skyline was the only way to access that property. And it was an entitlement they had. This board did not grant an entitlement. You just allowed them to build the road a little bit narrower in one spot. So that's kind of the background of why Mango Terrace was less discretion as opposed to a different property which owns the right-of-way and owns the property on either side and can expand the road.
Commissioner Heatherington.
In that case, why was the property owner not required to submit any plans? They went first for the variance, and there's no plans on the property.
You want to address that one?
Because they only asked for the variance, they did not come in for an actual road opening permit at that particular time. They want to make sure that they could get the variance, then to be able to build the road. It's not a requirement to put the both together. They're two separate processes.
That's why I didn't support it. It seemed like the process was going opposite the way it should. Like it should be plans, then ask for a variance.
So I think the reason is because it costs a lot of money to design and do that for the road. So you want to make sure you have the variance. I think Mango Terrace was a little different also because in addition to the variance, the county engineer requested you open the road. That's when the plans come in, and that was just a request by the county. That wasn't the request by the applicant. So that's where you would have already had a road built and reviewed the plan. So it was kind of a mixture of two things.
I think it's important to understand that the platted lot, in the way it was created, has all the entitlements to build a home under the zoning that's there. And so the only thing that the right goes with the property, not the property owner. They're requesting the variance so that the property can gain access. They have the right of access. They want to be able to build a road so that then all the other entitlements, which is it's eligible for a building permit only if it has a road in front of it that meets the county standard. It has all the abilities to get a road, except that it wasn't built yet. Under a modern subdivision, we don't allow the entitlement of the property, the plat, if you will, until there's a guarantee that the road will be built. In 1972, the state of Florida decided, you know what, allowing subdivisions to be created without infrastructure to support them was a change. If that, in the past, a property owner with their lawyer and their planners could draw it up and just simply record it with the courts, and there was no involvement of your local government. So after that, 1972, obviously that creates a lot of chaos in terms of when things get constructed. And so that entitlement is there. They're asking for their property right to be able to complete, to get a building permit. In this case, they can't get a building permit until the infrastructure's there. The lot can get infrastructure by virtue of the plat, but they first have to go to get a road opening. And in that particular case, in this area, they needed a variance from this board in order to get a road opening. If they did not need a variance from the board and they could just follow the straight road opening process, you wouldn't necessarily see it. So I think the challenge here is that it really gets to the fundamental of that property right that was granted in 1950 in this case, or it could have been a 1920s plat, whatever it is, and then our rules are regarding the zoning in terms of the lot size. That's still in place. If the lot was too small, you might have to use multiple lots to get a building house. So all the current zoning is still, but the entitlement to build a home is the only thing they're missing is the actual constructed road. So this granting of a road opening or a variance goes with the property, not the property owner. So what they ultimately say they're going to do, we can't hold them accountable. It's about the property right.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. Mr. Grzelka, I appreciate it. We had an opportunity to speak, and when I asked to have this conversation this morning, I was one of the people that did vote for it, and the picture was painted that, here's a landowner, an applicant who would really like to build a home, and they needed a little bit of an accommodation bring it down from 50 feet to 30, and that these lots were basically, if not necessarily landlocked, but you couldn't do what they wanted to. And then I thought, all right, it made sense, and, 3 of us obviously voted for it. And then very quickly afterwards, to almost insultingly, in my opinion, an ad was placed on Zillow promoting the property, that it could be much bigger than it was. It wasn't just a couple of houses for a couple of folks that were trying to, live the American dream. It made it sound like it was a business transaction, that none of that, and I saw the ad, I read it, none of that seemed to be discussed at the meeting. You had mentioned to me that you didn't feel that ad really told the exact story, that there still can only be what's legally allowed there versus what they were saying, what they were marketing that the property could be used for. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's correct. They apparently have some marketing items out there that are talking about multifamily and townhomes or what have you. But currently, under the current zoning, none of that's allowed. I mean, it's single-family homes only, and they've got 8 platted lots down there that, in order to build the road, will actually only allow them to have 6 or 7 left because they'll have to accommodate drainage and a roundabout or turnaround down there for fire rescue and everybody else. So, I mean, if they decide to, someone purchases and wants to do a multifamily project, they have to come up back in front of you with a land use change, with a zoning change, because they're not allowed. Under the current zoning, their only thing they're allowed to do on that property are single-family homes.
Okay. That's helpful and a bit reassuring compared to, hey, we're just looking for a little bit of an accommodation versus, hey, we're going to market this whole kind of big business opportunity. And your point at the end there about, hey, if someone purchases the property, they should really strongly do their due diligence to realize that it's not just because you read it in a Zillow ad doesn't mean that that's what you'll get to be able to do. Because I'll tell you, depending on how soon it comes back to us, I won't forget how this transpired. So at the very least, barring, some kind of catastrophe, I'll be here for the next 3.5 years. So, and I won't forget. Thank you.
Who's building the road?
They have not come in with an application to actually build the road as of yet.
There was an implication that the county was going to be responsible for building the road?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we from time to time change our rules, and those rules then apply to everyone. We can't pick and choose when our more strict rules apply. They apply as soon as they become one of our rules, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the rule back when these were platted were 30 feet of right-of-way was acceptable. It then became necessary to reserve 50 feet of right-of-way. So how do we determine, when we pick and choose which rule we're going to follow, what are we relying upon?
I think it's important that when the plat is created, that locks in sort of an entitlement that stays there forever. So if you're creating a new subdivision, you're not going to be able to create it without the exact right-of-way width. So what happens is that in these pre-1972 plats, they were legally created. They have all the rights of a property. Our simple rule since 1972 was that it now needed to be open to county standard, and that county standard has evolved in terms of drainage requirements, pavement thickness, all these other things. The right-of-way, though, is an impediment. In that in of itself, we can't prohibit the property right, if you will, of that property. So we've accommodated right-of-way with variances to allow certain property rights to be able to be continued without a taking.
And there is a code provision in the LDRs to allow for the variances for platted right-of-ways prior to 1972 for that reason.
Mr. Campy, let's close this out.
Yes, thank you. Just to your comment, Commissioner Hurd, and I understand what you're saying, that when you change a rule, the rule should sort of be the rule. However, I think without a mechanism that it would allow a property owner, resident, to come forward with a unique set of circumstances, that's why the five of us are here. First, there has to be a mechanism where someone can come and present to the government. The staff would review it first. If it gets through that staff analysis, then we're the backstop that would say, and the reason there's five of us is to see if you can convince three people that your set of circumstances, excuse me, would require a possibility of a change. There's been many cases. In this particular case, it feels like it didn't. And I think some of it was just the actions after the fact. Had that not taken place, it would have remained quiet. You know, obviously there are some existing neighbors that are upset by what's happening, but unless you own the property that's in question, you're going to have something happening on the property that somebody else owns that you might not like, but it's still allowable. In this particular case, if your scenario was correct, that once a rule is changed, it's never then varied from that point, then you could just put a book or granite tablets in front here or a computer terminal where people just look it up. It says no, it's no. That's not how it would really work. There has to be opportunities for certain circumstances that the 3 of 5, if not more, would say, we agree. And so I don't think the system or the process was wrong. I just think that how it was taken up by the owner of the property after the fact so quickly to say, okay, well, I'm not going to do what I originally was my intention. Now I'm going to completely just make it a business transaction. I felt a little kind of taken advantage of.
Okay.
Thank you. End of comments.
Ms. Woods?
I'm sorry, I have no comment.
Okay. Then we will, the next order is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Now we will take up Department 3 out of order, which is to consider a resolution approving a conveyance of property and acceptance of property pursuant to Section 125.38 in accordance with Palomar Settlement Agreement.
Morning, Commissioners.
Mr. Poprowski. Commissioner Capps, do you want to make a comment first? Okay.
I'm before you today seeking authorization of a property exchange pursuant to a settlement, land exchange, and purchase agreement in the case of Be a Man Buy Land versus the county, South Florida Water Management District, FWC, and TIF. That settlement agreement was approved by the board in November of last year. Per Section 125 Florida statutes, the county is required to publish notice of any land swap for 2 weeks, and pursuant to Section 139, Florida statute requires that the board approve any transfer of property for public purposes. As part of this swap, which is contemplated by that settlement agreement, the county would be transferring ownership of 559 acres. Those acres are divided between lands that the county owns solely, that South Florida Water Management owns solely, and acres that are owned jointly. As you know, most of the acreage is owned jointly with the Water Management District. But we do own some solely, and so do they. In return, these are properties or parcels in the northern Chimney area. In return, we would be receiving approximately 1,100 acres in the middle and eastern portions of Palmar from property that is currently owned by Be a Man. And those would also be transferred to us in proportionate ownership, so we would receive some solely, South Florida Water Management would receive some solely, the majority of those 1,100 acres would come to us as jointly. And I do have a breakdown of those if you would like further information, but I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Questions? Commissioner Heatherington?
Is this the last step in this process?
No, Commissioner. The settlement agreement contemplates 5 transfers that extend into 2026, whereby after this, we continue to purchase portions of land owned by Be a Man Buy Land. And per the settlement agreement, of course, we can do anything sooner. I think the last contemplated date is February of 2026. And we'd be coming before you, or I'd be coming before you for any lands that we're purchasing, because that also needs board approval when we'd be buying land
So
from
this
them.
completes the swap, but there's other additional properties. This
Yep.
would take care of all of the properties that we're swapping.
Correct. The swap is one of the first transfers. There's no other swaps besides this one.
Okay, I'll move approval, and I'd love to see this done as soon as possible.
Can I have a book?
Commissioner Vargas?
Yeah, was there any cash transacted in addition to the swaps for the settlement?
As part of this first transaction, the South Florida Water Management District purchased 45 acres of land, which the Water Management District paid Be a Man for. So there was, it was to the tune of $800-some thousand, I believe. But again, that was not county monies.
Any further questions? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussions? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We will move on to public hearing number 1, which is fund balance adjustments that are necessary for fiscal year 2025. Ms. Murley.
Good morning, Commissioner. Stephanie Murley, I'm Director of OMB, here to just give you a little presentation of Public Hearing 1, adjustments that are necessary for fiscal year 2025 or our fund balance adjustments. This is something that we do annually. Fund balance is any funds that remained at the end of the fiscal year, so this would be fiscal year 24 that ended on September 30th, 2024. It includes ongoing project budgets, cost savings in the departments, and any revenue collections over anticipated. The amount that we're presenting to you today is the difference between the estimated fund balance that we did during budget development for fiscal year 25 back in June 2024, and the fully accounted closure of the fiscal year, which was at the beginning of this month, February 2025. Fund balance is not a new tax levy or assessment, but rather a carry forward of the previous year's funds that we've already collected. So adjusting fund balances is considered a best management practice by the Government Finance Officers Association and is included in our annually adopted fiscal policy. What fund balance does is it ensures an accurate depiction of fiscal health and adjusts our budget to align with our current on-hand resources. It assists in long-term budget planning. It promotes fiscal stability and manages risk, and it secures the county reserves per our reserve policy. This is a public hearing, and there was an advertisement requirement as a fund balance is considered a budget amendment to the FY25 adopted budget. It was published in the Stuart News on Friday, February 21st, and it's consistent with Florida State Statutes, Section 129.06, Section 2. And a little bit of fund balance highlights in this year's fund balance. I want to highlight again our parks revenue generating facilities that had revenues over their expenditures that have allowed them to allocate for fixed asset replacement budgets. Many of the parks revenue generating facilities have been able to save for future maintenance of those facilities without any burden on the taxpayer dollars. More highlights involved the replenishment of our restricted reserves amongst multiple funds. We were able to replenish the Disaster Recovery Fund after Hurricane Milton, which is currently at $1.8 million year-to-date expenses due to the tornado outbreak. And we were able to fund the remainder of the funding request that was asked for and directed by the board for the Transportation Disadvantage Program back in the FY25 budget workshop. And with that, just wanted to give a little overview of this really big accounting entry, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Burley? I was at the County Coalition meeting in Okeechobee on Friday, and commissioners there were talking about, they were astonished that they were still wrangling with FEMA reimbursements for hurricanes that were 2 years ago. And I see in ours that we have FEMA reimbursements for Irma and Matthew, which were, Irma was in,
2017.
yeah, it takes a long time to settle out these FEMA accounts.
Yes, we keep those in reserve as pending reimbursements. We don't count them or use them towards anything until we see the dollars in hand.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, quick question. Ms. Marley, these particular figures here on the page with all of the facilities, is that net or
That was just a
gross?
one-year snapshot of their net profits. They've accumulated a lot of cash over the years. So this is just a quick snapshot of what their net profit was for that fiscal year that we were able to bring forward. So, for example, the Seaside Cafe has been operating for now, I think, 3 years, and so it has accumulated year over year about $300,000 to $500,000 in order for Mr. Abate and his team in order to reinvest back into that Seaside Cafe.
Yes, which I understand he told me that he's going to be using these funds and others.
Yes.
To shift to be able to have a new cafe,
Yeah.
new facilities there.
As a budget director and county resident, I enjoy that.
Yes, you do. And you're District 1.
Yes, I am.
You are. All right.
Commissioner Capps?
You may have already covered this, but I wanted to make sure. I think a large component of the fund balance has to do with how, when we're doing budgets, we can only budget like, is it 90 or 95% of revenue sources?
Correct.
So-
And so the amount here is that extra 5% that we will typically collect ends up rolling into our fund balance that we roll forward into a restricted reserve.
And I would tend to think that's a very large part of the fund balance, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Public comment.
Pending any public comment.
Is there any public comment? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to ear amendments. Public hearing number 2, legislative public hearing to consider adoption of evaluation and appraisal report, ear-based comprehensive plan amendment number 2401 preamble, which is a text amendment.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Clyde Doolin, and before Jenna gets started, I'd like to make a little introduction to all the next 7 board items that you'll be taking up. These are every 7 years, the county must review its comprehensive growth management plan. It's a requirement of Florida statutes. The evaluation and appraisal report was done in order to accomplish that review, and that report was presented, well, that began in August of 2023, and it ended with a report being presented to the board in March of 2024. And at that point, the board voted to initiate these year-based comprehensive plan amendments that are required by Florida statutes. The public hearings today, the 7 public hearings, will begin and are scheduled to conclude on March 25. Final action will not be taken today on these public hearings. And on March 11, 7 more public hearings will begin, and they will also conclude on March 25. The public hearing schedule for March 25 will complete the year cycle that occurs every 7 years. These plan amendments are not changing the urban service boundary, changing the 4-story height limit, disregarding the protection of wildlife, wetland areas, and natural habitat, and they are not changing agricultural land. These plan amendments do make changes required by Florida statutes. They address local issues, such as acknowledging the village of Indiantown is not an unincorporated area anymore, and they make basic housekeeping changes to keep the plan up to date. Failure to adopt these amendments within 180 days of the objections, recommendations, and comments report, which was issued on December 30, will cause the plan amendments to be considered withdrawn, and we'll have to start over. Additionally, failure to adopt the amendments pursuant to Chapter 163-3184 will be a failure to comply with another section of Florida statute, and it will prevent the board from initiating or adopting plan amendments in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Nobby to present Chapter 1. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Jenna Nobby. I'm a senior planner with the Growth Management Department. And as Clyde mentioned, this is a request to consider adoption of CPA 24-01, a text amendment to Chapter 1 preamble of the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan as part of the year-based process. This amendment was transmitted to the state of Florida and the State Land Planning Agency to be reviewed, and the state did not issue any comments specific to the proposed changes for Chapter 1. However, just a brief overview of what these changes are contemplating. Section 1.7B, Housing Unit Demand Projection, and Section 1.7C, Residential Capacity Calculations, are both being revised to reflect changes that are also proposed in Chapter 4, Future Land Use Element, to be internally consistent with one another. Chapter 4 will be coming before you on March 25th. Additionally, Section 1.7B and 1.7C are also being revised to reference that the Village of Indiantown has been incorporated. And there is also, in 1.7C, there's a change proposed for the existing 15-year planning period to now specify a 20-year planning period. And this change is consistent with Section 163.3177 of Florida statute. There are also a few sections that are being renumbered for accuracy and section references being updated accordingly. So that concludes the overview of the proposed changes for Chapter 1, and staff recommends that the board continue this public hearing to March 25th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or as soon after as the matter may be heard in chambers at the Martin County Administrative Building, and we are available for any questions that you may have.
Questions? Commissioner Vargas.
Thank you. Are we strengthening or weakening our protection of our lands in Martin County? There is a big chorus that says we are just not.
I would say neither. We are simply making technical changes necessary to comply with Florida statutes and recognize changes in local circumstances.
Okay, so there are technical changes. Why is this change needed? I mean, what's so important for that? Could we just let it be and say, okay, we've reviewed it, I understand you have to do this every 7 years?
Well, some of the changes, like acknowledging a 10 and 20-year planning period as a minimum, is a requirement of Florida statutes. If we don't change the words in the plan to reflect a 20-year planning period, we'll not be in compliance with Florida statutes. Another change that Ms. Nobby mentioned is recognizing the Village of Indiantown. It's no longer an unincorporated area. It is now incorporated as its own municipality. So our plan is not, shall we say, accurate if we continue to ignore that.
Okay. So with these changes, is it easier for development to occur, or is it more difficult for it to occur?
I would say neither.
Because there's a big fear about moving out the boundary, and there's a lot of people very upset about these changes, the amendments. So we need to reassure our citizens that we are doing everything that is in their best interest.
And as Clyde mentioned in his introduction, these proposed amendments do not contemplate any movement of any boundaries.
Okay, and that would be all of those that are going to be presented today, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in the future, I understand there are 2 more hearings for this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Commissioner Capps?
On the issue of making needed changes because of changes in state law and because of changes in current conditions, there's the issue of what the state requires us to do as far as updates are concerned. There's another issue that is always looming out there, and it has to do with legal defensibility. Like, if you have a comp plan that has old, antiquated, irrelevant things in it, it becomes more fodder for attorneys to claim that we're not paying attention and that it gives them more ammo in their lawsuits when they do sue the county. Is that a true thought?
At least Elder Deputy County Attorney, it could. If you have antiquated methodologies, it could give somebody some armor. So it is good to update things that might be outdated.
Right, for legal defensibility purposes. So I think that's something that ought to be remembered.
Did the legislature take away our ability to do a 15-year planning period for residential capacity calculations, or did they just require us to do a 20-year?
20, the latter.
So we are allowed to do a 15-year planning horizon. Why are we not?
We can, if that's the pleasure of the board. We
Okay.
can do 5, 10, 15, as many as you want.
It's a whole lot easier and more accurate to do a 15-year planning than a 20-year planning.
We will also have to do a 20.
Okay, and add the 20 in. I'm not going to support this because of the changes that are included in 1.7B and in 1.7C. That's including having removing the 15-year planning period and replacing it with a 20-year planning period. Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, can that be amended, Chairwoman?
Sure.
Heard?
If the
At this
board-
hearing?
If the board desires, when we bring it back on March 25th, we can include a 15-year planning period, certainly. That's something that can be added.
Commissioner Campy?
I'm not opposed to that. Commissioner Hurd, you said that there were certain changes that would facilitate you not being able to vote for it. What are your other issues?
Housing unit demand projection and residential capacity calculations have been changed, and in my opinion, they've been weakened. There are requirements that have been removed. I understand removing Indiantown, but that's a practical matter and a legal matter. But removing the other things is unnecessary. It's just this is making a choice about how we do residential capacity and how we calculate housing unit demand. Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, how could we word this, and I have to defer to both of you, so that this would be palatable and workable. My understanding is that we do have still buildable space within the urban service boundary. We still do have homes that are not occupied, so therefore we do not need to build out further. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
I think, if I may, the calculation, the proposed changes to the calculation are, or the proposed methodology changes are intended to take away the excess vacant housing unit calculation that is part of the methodology. It still calculates vacant lots, vacant empty lots all over Martin County as part of this proposed change. It just takes away the counting of residential units that were occupied and are maybe temporarily unoccupied.
Ms. Elder?
And just for clarification, the changes that you're referring to, Commissioner Hurd, in 1.7B and C, those are contingent upon the board approving changes in Chapter 4. If the board doesn't approve the changes in Chapter 4, that language likely would revert back.
I'm not going to be approving the changes in Chapter 4.
I understand.
So can we eliminate, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Commissioner Vargas?
Thank you so much. Can we eliminate that particular language? As Commissioner Hurd has referred to, we can strike that.
If the board desires, yeah, we do not have to make these changes. These are suggested by staff. If the board determines they don't want to make the Chapter 4 changes or the changes in Chapter 1, we will revise the ordinance according to the will of the board. So it's up to the board in their vote. But the Chapter 4 doesn't come back to the board until March 25th. So, and that's when I think staff is going to explain the whole change. But you will have this ordinance back on the 25th, so you'll be able to make either adopt or not adopt it, depending on what you do on Chapter 4. I think Chapter 4 is going first in the scheme of things, so you will be able to determine a final, final vote on this. Today's just talking about it, and then we're going to continue it.
Commissioner Campy?
This is our opportunity for the five of us to hear each other's opinions, as well as have the opportunity to all be with staff at the same time. So I appreciate your concerns, Commissioner Hurd, but when you say you won't be able to support the chapter because of this and this, I would like, if you are willing, for you to expand on your concerns, and then I'd like to hear from staff, because maybe I will agree with you. Maybe I don't have the opportunity to know your perspective ahead of time. I would like that when we get to the point of either voting them up or down, or instead of voting them down, work together collaboratively with our staff, hear what staff has to say, and maybe we will agree on approving these chapters. I don't know if we send the proper message to the public if these are going to be split votes, and so I know you've been here for a long time. Have a very definitive opinion of what should happen. The concept of having a 15-year plan instead of only a 20 makes sense to me, so I'm 1 for 1 with you. What are your other issues that I can hear? I then would like to hear from staff. I do agree when staff says, as to Ms. Commissioner Vargas's question, are you weakening? Are you expanding? Are you watering down? And when Mr. Doolin says, I don't believe we're not making it stronger or weaker. It's just, wordsmithing and corrections. And in some of the emails that we received, some people said, I understand you're doing some tweaking and you're doing some wholesale just destroying of the plan. I don't believe that that's the case, but if you have suggestions, instead of just saying, I won't vote for it, let's hear them. Maybe we agree with you and we can change it and all vote yes.
I think that they're tied to Chapter 4.
Then let's do Chapter 4 first. Or do you have to do them in order?
No.
It wasn't noticed, so we can't really have a public hearing on Chapter 4 today. I'm not sure if we could bring it back before the next board meeting, what the days, but.
But like you said, Ms. Elder, that if Chapter 4 doesn't go a certain way, it would make some of these changes today sort of moot.
Correct.
That being said, we're practicing today then, if we're going to wait to see what happens in 4. But but maybe 4 lives and 1 stays as it is. I just want this to be more of a productive process than just some people won and some people quote-unquote lost.
Chapter 4 is, in my opinion, the most important chapter of the comprehensive plan. It's the future land use chapter. And it determines how we determine residential capacity analysis and how we plan for the future. Where if we're required to expand, where we're going to expand, all those things. It's our map for how we are going to grow in the future and where we're going to grow. And it all is hinged on residential capacity analysis and housing unit demand projection. That's how we're going to determine if adequate residential capacity exists for 15 years, or if it doesn't, then we have to start planning for the future. So this preamble contains some of the changes that are proposed in Chapter 4, and they're changes that I think are going to weaken our planning efforts. Commissioner Hetherington.
So if we were to continue this, keeping in mind that we've all discussed a 15-year planning period and potentially some other changes, we still have the ability to change this Chapter 1 at the final adoption hearing,
Correct.
Correct.
You can make it more restrictive.
based on what happens in Chapter 4.
Correct.
Commissioner Vargas.
Couple of things here. I like restricting. I like to go that way rather than that way. I think it's important, and I do agree with Commissioner Ciampi. Doesn't happen often, but I do today, right at this moment. Yes.
Please mark that on the record. Give me a video.
Just to give some levity here, it's getting a little bit tight here. So if we were going to make it more restrictive, how can we have a genial coming together for the betterment of our county, for the protection of our county, hearing our residents' concerns? Can we enumerate them besides what you said? And I heard everything that you said, Chairwoman, heard. Could you give us some direction here?
We probably should have workshopped this so that we could sit down and discuss how the chapters are linked. We've missed out on that opportunity. I don't know that it's gone forever, but that would have given us an opportunity to consider these not just discreetly, but all together. Maybe it's still possible to do that. Yes.
Can we do that?
At the will of the board, we could schedule a meeting. I think there's enough time to advertise it. So if the board wants to hold a workshop on Chapter 4 and the related chapters, you can hold a special meeting if you want to. I think there's time to advertise it before March 25th, so that shouldn't be a problem. We just have to do the proper notice. So yes, you could if you wanted to.
All right, so that's a solution. That's a positive. And we can bring all of our concerns at the same time. Is
As
that?
long as we advertise it, yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Campy.
The concept of workshop is something that from the very first day I showed up here has been something that we discuss. It's not in my opinion, the proper mechanism. I think this is the workshop. Commission meetings. More people are paying attention to commission meetings. No one's going to watch workshops. If they're held in the afternoon, people can't come anyway. I don't understand. To me, that's just a definition. This is our workshop. This is not, we're not just saying yes or no to a defined document today. That's why when I asked Commissioner Hurd, give me more specifics of what you're interested in, we're workshopping it now when people knew that it was coming. To have an additional meeting, I was actually expecting, based on the emails and the things that we received today, I was expecting the room to be nearly full today with folks. And I get that people work, and we're going to have a conversation on nighttime meetings versus daytime meetings. But I'll tell you, I watch the City of Stuart meetings, and when they go till 1:30 in the morning, you're not giving the public an opportunity to participate in that meeting either. Because if you start at 4 o'clock, people work to 5 or 6. And then people have to eat dinner. And then people have to, if you're a family person, you got to put your kids to bed. So when do you have the meeting? So that being said, this is the meeting. I would prefer to go through these methodically now and hear your suggestions. I get what you said about your concerns with Chapter 4. I don't disagree with that. I'd love to hear what our new commissioners are thinking, because, Commissioner Vargas might think that she and I won't agree on a lot of these things, but that might not be the case. I'm interested in hearing them. I agree Martin County is at a crossroads and people are concerned. Now, I won't just lock it down and go restrictive on every single thing too, because there's a fine line where you're down the center giving people an opportunity to continue to grow a strong community versus, going back to the days where people were petrified to do any business here. There's a fine line, and I think all five of us, for the most part, are somewhere in the middle. To say that we're not going to do anything opens us up wildly to lawsuits and Bert Harris and unintended consequences. So if there's some tweaking, and that's what this whole 7-year thing is about. I remember the last time we did the EAR. Now, whether you liked how the process worked, it was definitely a much bigger process. And I liked what we did now with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, because last time it was ad hoc groups of citizens, and they turned into kind of like just slam sessions. And even on the pro-development side, if you will, the groups that formed, it was like 80, 90 people arguing back and forth, and it became almost like some kind of weird hockey game. This, I think, was a much more civilized process. Sometimes civilized looks like it's not transparent, but I think it was. So if you have a couple more things in Chapter 1, I get that we will see them in Chapter 4. We're talking about Chapter 1. Let's talk about it.
Ms. Elder?
So a possible solution would be, so for March 25th, Chapter 4 is advertised, and I think Chapter 2 and Chapter 1 are the other related. We can talk about them on March 25th. You'll be able to have public hearings on all of them. The Chapter 4 will go first, and if there's dramatic changes or a lot of changes that the board wants to make, you can always continue the hearing to another meeting. We still have a little bit of buffer time before our 180 days work out. So if necessary, on the 25th, you can continue all 16 public hearings if more work has to be done. But they'll all be there on the 25th for you to talk about, so that might be also an option if another meeting doesn't work.
Okay. Mr. Donaldson?
I was just going to say that I think the residential capacity analysis is probably one of your most technical issues of this whole discussion. And I don't think staff was trying to do anything to make it more difficult. There's simply nuances in regards to defensibility and the current data that I think you just need an opportunity to talk about. Keeping it the way it is certainly fine. Making some changes has really to do with staff's look at the current economic situation, because some of that residential capacity analysis calculation was done at a time during the Great Recession when you had lots of foreclosures, and it was anticipating using that. So we're only looking at and how you might use that either positively or negatively against us, and so I think that was part of how the calculation was amended. That being said, I think we'll need to present a much more detailed presentation to you on that particular piece, but be prepared at the time to basically how the spider web of it linked through these other chapters. However you make that change, we'll be prepared to make it throughout all of the documents transparently for you. March 25th, we're fine with, or whether we put simply a discussion on residential capacity calculation in between that would also be another way we could try to address it before the 25th, so you have a chance to kind of talk about that. That particular issue, I think, is, again, one of the most significant ones. That's all I had to add.
And when was the last time a residential capacity analysis was performed?
We performed one in 2023,
And it showed us what?
that we have capacity
For
in our urban
15
service
years.
districts. Yes.
And what would the residential capacity analysis, if amended in 4 and 1, how much capacity would the county have using the new laws?
It would still show capacity. It would just be
Would it be more capacity or less capacity?
less. Not substantially, but less.
That's what I'm concerned about. Commissioner Vargas.
So I understand what you're saying about your report. However, the market forces may prove differently, of which will be discovered in the future. You know, people are losing their homes, losing their jobs, whatever it may be. Am I thinking correctly on this?
That's a possibility. There are market changes that may be happening. Members of the board, I'd like to, I know we can't talk about Chapter 4, but some of the same language that's in 4 is right here in front of you in Chapter 1. And Chapter 1.7a is part of that methodology. It's not changing. Every word stays the same, both in this chapter and in 4. Chapter 1.7b, housing demand projection, is still a requirement, is still going to be a part of it, but the words occupied housing and vacant seasonal housing are not going to be needed because of a change that's later on proposed. We'll still be dealing with peak population. We'll still be dealing with projecting for housing units in the future in very much the same way that we do right now. There's not a lot changing there. It looks like more than it is. We're just clarifying the language here that parcels in unincorporated Martin counties are not included. That's always been the case. And we're clarifying that that portion of the secondary, which has become very small next to Indiantown, will just be included in the total tally. That's not a big change. If you didn't make this change, it wouldn't make any difference in the capacity analysis. In the capacity calculations, there are some small changes. This change right here, whether if you do A and B or you just change it the way it's proposed for wording, it still ends up being exactly the same. There's no difference whether you count vacant single-family duplex lots of records pre-82 and then have another line that says post-82. Doesn't matter, we're counting both either way. And so this change right here, where my cursor is really just a wording change. It doesn't change the capacity methodology at all.
May I stop you there for a second, Mr.
Sure.
Madam Chair?
Sure.
He just went through 3 little portions of this section. Do you agree with him or disagree?
not.
Okay, so that's really the juxt of this. If those of us that are going to rely on professional staff's opinions, having worked on this for a long time, giving my colleague her due for being up here for many years and her strong positions, I will then have to make a determination, and there are cases where I will agree with you, my colleague, but overall, I'm inclined to listen to our professional staff, that is a group of people trained in this, that have reviewed this extensively over the last several months. So that's my concern, that if we talk about trying to have a fair process, and he just mentioned 3, and I'm assuming you have respect for his professional abilities. That's an assumption. Good. I don't have to assume then.
You didn't prepare these, the Planning Council did.
Any of this work you disagree with?
Actually, this was prepared by staff.
Okay. And I'm not trying to turn this into a whole thing. I'm just saying that if we're not going to even agree on what the most simple, hey, these are not fundamental changes, if you disagree with that, then that's a non-starter. We might as well just do like we normally do, put them up. Some of us will vote yes, some of us will vote no, and staff will just roll the dice and see if it's going to be 3 in your direction or 3 against. We could just as easily do that and move through this pretty quickly, unless we're genuinely going to hash it out, which I am absolutely willing to do, or we can go old school and just choose sides.
Well, that's easy for you to say because you've already approved these changes back in October.
Well, listen, and I'm trying to keep it really high level here. When the majority passed in 2008, in 12, wholesale changes across all sorts of things happened on day one with former commissioners, with a very involved legal counsel in the community, started totally disassembling this. I don't need to take this document back and forth every time there's a political shift in the majority. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I would never have even brought this up if the ear wasn't a thing. Some of the changes that you guys made back then, I agreed with, some I didn't. When you get a new majority come in, there's a new philosophy. Some of these changes, I take him at his word. If he's saying this is just housekeeping language, I agree. You know, the only concern I have with residential capacity analysis is if I own 5 acres in Palm City and you tell me that there's an analysis says that there's room in Hobe Sound or Jensen Beach for capacity, but I own 5 acres in Palm City, I only care about my 5 acres in Palm City. I won't want to hear someone say, sorry, there's nothing you can do on your property because we need more houses in Hobe Sound. I don't own property in Hobe Sound. That's my concern with analysis or all those other studies that we do, because some people will like them and some people won't, so we shelve them. Or we use them depending on who's got the 3 votes at the time. I'm flexible here. I thought even if we could make some incremental changes, then I'm okay. Like, he was giving us a suggestion, do we want A and B, or just A, or just B? That's 2 sentences. Can we figure that one out? Take little baby steps at this? Or should we not and just move ahead and we'll let the chips fall where they may? Some people will think we're geniuses and other people will think we're terrible.
Members of the board, there's one more point I wanted to make in this analysis or in this presentation. Paren 4, which is highlighted on your screen, is the change that all of the others are really related to. It deletes the calculation or the inclusion of excess vacant housing. It is a part of the methodology that is dated because of the fact that there is not the excess housing units that people once lived in, as there was in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. We don't have houses where the lawns where people have walked away from them and left them to the bank. We don't have overgrown yards and pools that have turned green because as we did in those days. And this methodology, this piece of the methodology was specific to that situation and that time has passed. And that concludes the remarks.
Commissioners, do you want to take action on this item, or do you want to continue it, or
Commissioner,
We have to continue it, right?
Public comment, please.
is there any public comment? Yes, sir. Please come forward, and when you're finished, please fill out a request to speak form. Thank you.
Walter Lloyd, 150 Southwest Cabana Point. To your point, sir, you just said that this time doesn't exist as it did when this verbiage was created. Does that, I'm not going to put it as a question. To me, that means it doesn't matter if it stays or goes, because that time, as we heard the commissioner allude to, could come up again. If it's not pertinent today, but it's in the verbiage, it doesn't hurt a thing. So why not leave it?
Thank you. Commissioner Campy.
Mr. Doolan, would you like to answer that question?
It adds shadow units that aren't there because it's based on, the only way you can get that excess vacant calculation is to use very old census data that's only provided once every 10 years. And those numbers have already changed by the time we run the calculation.
That's why.
But what if there is a recession 5 years from now and the language is no longer in there because it wasn't applicable in 2025, but it certainly is applicable in 2030, but we're not going to have a way to estimate those excess vacant units?
Commissioner, may I?
Sure.
Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director, for the record. Applications at some point in the future we do not anticipate. However, at some point in the future there could be an application to, as the Commissioner Vargas mentioned, there are no current applications to move the urban boundary. Certainly nothing in the plan prohibits someone, an individual property owner. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, there is.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It certainly is.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to speak generally. But that would be on an application by application basis. We're not entertaining any movement of the urban boundary today. What we're simply talking about is these changes as part of the state required changes.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Then let's make the changes that the state requires. That's
Since
not what we're doing.
Since you're looking for direction, I'll
Mr. Campy.
render some direction. Having heard that from Ms. Elder that she didn't say that. The language here, the verbiage in this chapter will be based on what happens in Chapter 4, and that if something we debate when we do debate Chapter 4 would render this no longer important or part of it, it'll automatically, I will move staff's recommendation for this chapter, knowing that, to continue it to March 25th, knowing that we'll have an opportunity to see it again.
Would anyone from the public like to address us?
We did that.
I thought maybe someone else would.
Oh,
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is to
Opposed?
continue.
correct.
Yeah.
I just-
All those in favor?
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't hear a second.
I thought Heatherington seconded.
No, but I will second to continue it to March 25th because we have to continue it and take it up on March 25th.
Okay. Commissioner Capps?
I think what we'll have to remember on March 25th is how all of these provisions and the different amendments relate to each other. And the real hinge will be Chapter 4 that will influence what we ultimately do with, is this Chapter 1? Yeah,
Yes.
Chapter 1. And we'll have to think about and have a good discussion about how they all interrelate, and so that everything is consistent from one chapter to the next, so.
Agreed.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. That motion passes 4-1 with her dissenting. We will now take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
you're on.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kimberly Levy, your Chief of Staff, and we're here today to talk about the Treasure Coast Medical Examiner's Office. In November of 2022, the 19th Judicial Circuit, which consists of Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee,
Closer to the mic, thanks.
and Okeechobee counties, signed an interlocal agreement for the purpose of locating, designing, permitting, and constructing a new facility for the medical examiner. I'm joined with a small group today, which includes Scotty Blue, the project and construction manager from St. Lucie County, the architect, and we have the medical examiner here with us today. They're going to give you a presentation on how the project is going. Please join us.
Good morning and welcome.
Dignitaries, visitors, nice to have you.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name's Scotty Ballou. I'm the construction manager over at St. Lucie County Facilities. We're just here to give you a brief update on the medical examiner facility. We want to thank each and every one of you for your time today. I'm joined by Johnny Lorem, and obviously Dr. Aronica is here with us as well to answer any questions that you would have. This is for informational purposes only, so please stop us as many times as you'd like, ask as many questions as you'd like. We'd like to give you as much information on this project as we possibly can. So we're here for you. Ask away. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Johnny.
Thanks, Scotty. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to kind of catch you up to speed on where this project stands. On behalf of my firm, first, thank you for the opportunity. This project's been a blessing. It's been a priority for my firm. It will continue to be a priority, and just wanted to thank everyone for that opportunity. Again, as Scotty mentioned, strictly, informational, so stop me at any time. No worries with any questions or anything. Want me to back up or go after. So real quickly, we just did introductions. Want to talk a little bit about kind of the scope of work that our team was tasked with. A little bit about medical examiner design, and if that's not interesting, tell me, hey, Johnny, move forward, skip on. A little bit about the project location, high-level overview of the floor plans and what the project looks like, and talk a little bit about next steps, okay? Again, my name is Johnny Lorem. I'm president of JL2 Architecture. I've been doing municipal projects for 24 years. I am 100% involved in this project from day one through the end, through construction. I'm not going anywhere. We have a list of consultants at the bottom of the screen here that are local consultants that are familiar with the area, know how to work here, know how to design here, and that's important when you're doing a local project. I am out of the Longwood area. However, our team has experience, working in this area. We are also partnered with a national firm, MWL. They specialize completely in forensic labs, public safety facilities, and more importantly for this project, they've done more than 50 medical examiner projects. And I can tell you that they've had a hand in more than half of the medical examiner facilities in the past or currently ongoing in design in the state of Florida. So they are a partner of ours that I've worked with over a decade now. They specifically are pathology architects, so they've been critical to this project. And again, just a little bit of local personal experience of mine, just to show individually, I've had experience, in my past working in this area, whether it was with high schools or the Fenn Center or the EOC. I also had a hand. I don't have it on the screen, but I was the project architect of Martin County Middle School way back in the day, right? So my past life. So we are familiar with working in this area and know the community well. My team has done a combination of over 300 plus public safety projects, and yes, I do consider a medical examiner a public safety project, first responders, that type of facility, and we want to design the type of facility that can serve that nature. So project scope is to do 100% design through construction administration. There's kind of a laundry list on the right there of some of those scope of services: architectural, MEP, fire, civil, anything site related, and site investigations, structural engineering, landscape, security design, traffic design. That's just kind of a taste of, a little bit of what was involved in putting this project together. As you know, it's a interlocal agreement between the medical examiner, St. Lucie County, Indian River County, Martin County, Okeechobee County. We have done our due diligence and done, per the agreement, every time we've had a milestone, there has been the 30-day review period at each milestone for each of the entities, including yourselves, to have a say and make sure you've been involved in the project itself.
And I'm just going to add a little bit onto that slide. We also partner with IRSC, so they have donated a parcel of land for us, and we will be building this building on the IRSC campus over in Fort Pierce. So we do have a really nice high and dry 2-acre parcel on the actual campus, and we will be permitting through IRSC because they have their own permitting and building department, so.
And I would like to thank Scotty and especially Dr. Aronica's staff. They spent a significant amount of time with our team, especially up front, several months of getting to know how they work, what their philosophies are, what their needs are. That was a big proponent to the start of this project. Had a very heavy hand in making sure we were being very responsible with taxpayers' dollars. We are sitting on the Indian River State campus, so the college campus, so it has a certain look, but I can tell you the facility is very cost effective, and that was something that was important to our team. And just, again, wanted to thank them, as they were very heavy-handed in the outcome of where we're at. So just a little bit of kind of criteria when we're looking at a facility like this. First and foremost, the project will achieve NAME accreditation, which is kind of the foremost authority in accrediting these type of facilities. And here's some things that we're looking at in the design. We're wanting to control odor. We want to be flexible and have the capability of expandability, whether it's future growth or multi-use spaces, things like that, where we're really being efficient with the space that we're designing. Natural light is important with these type of facilities. Adaptability, containment is important, sight lines is important, and really public and staff safety. These are some critical items that we look at in design and ME project. I've got just a myriad of images here. These are not renderings or anything of the facility that we're designing. These are just examples of some spaces that are very similar to what you'll see in the design of your new project. This is the morgue space, right? Administrative space, I think. I've got a quote that I'll bring up here in a minute, but I think when everybody thinks of a medical examiner facility, the first thing that pops into their head is this, right? And that is not what it's all about, right? The lab space is, of course, kind of the heart of this, but really the facility is there to serve the community and to serve families that are coming to visit there, to serve the administrative staff that's there, and we have to create an environment for them as well, right? So we don't like to look at it as just a giant morgue. It's also administrative space. It's other space really there to serve the community. So again, just some other examples of the type of open style workspaces that you may have in your new facility. The Sally port, right? Being very respectful and responsible and secure when you're bringing decedents through the property. An example of, this is called a Lodox machine. This is an example of the technology that would be in your new facility. So this is a full body scanner, and this is incredibly important and helpful, and is a necessity for these type of facilities moving forward, and your facility will have this. Observation areas, there's two types of observation areas, right? You have the observation areas that are looking directly into the lab itself, but there's also a family room at the lobby portion of this facility, and I'll show you in the floor plan, that really allows for, if family members or others are not going to come back and don't want to have this kind of visibility, that can be done in a little bit more comforting of a setting with video and things like that. And this is that comment that I was talking about earlier, and I'll just read it directly. The purpose of a medical examiner's facility extends beyond the bounds of functionality and has the opportunity to help with the bereavement process in the community. So in our minds, empathy and understanding are really what's at the core of this type of project. We started the project, again, as I mentioned, spending a lot of time with staff through a needs assessment programming effort. I'm not going to put every single one of that, staff got a book this thick, of the needs and everything. But ultimately, this is the last page of the programming document, which really looks at 20-year needs and 30-year needs, right? So, and we do that with the counsel of you really want to pay attention to those 30-year needs. You don't want to design a facility that you're going to grow out of 5 years after you move into, or sometimes quicker. And honestly, if you can look at the difference here, the 20-year needs really turned out to be about a 23,000 square foot facility. The 30-year needs were about a 25,000 square foot facility. So, when it comes to cost and just being proactive and thinking about the future, this facility is designed around those 30-year needs and is roughly about 25,000 square feet. Here's an example of the site. As Scotty mentioned, it is on the Indian River State College campus. It's on the corner of a Kirby Loop and Home Road. If you're not familiar with that, it's directly west of the public safety facility that's been there for a really long time. Again, as Scotty mentioned, it's about a 2-acre parcel. Some of the things that we, look at when we're developing the site plan is, does the project have a civic look? It still needs to be somewhat inviting to the public. And keep in mind, Indian River State College also has their specific standards, as far as, wanting to fit in with their look. Expansion capability becomes important with these type of facilities. When you expand in the future, it's in a couple of areas. It's in the morgue space, the lab space, and in the admin space. So we've set this facility up so that if you did ever need to expand up beyond those 25,000 square feet, we keep things like utilities and stuff out of these open areas that are marked future on here so that you can make those expansions easily. Site screening is important. Secure staff parking versus public parking we look at. Again, where the private decedent receiving is. There are name requirements for how those vehicles are to get in and out privately and securely. How traffic is flowing on the site, and really trying to accommodate for something that has really affected, the whole country really in these type of facilities in the last 5-6 years because of COVID, and it's just planning for a mass disaster, right? So I think if you've ever had the opportunity to visit these type facilities in the last several years, when this event has been occurring, you'll see freezers and trucks and things like that parked outside, really nowhere to go, right? So we try to plan for that larger event. Maybe it's a hurricane, things like that. So these are just kind of the things in looking at this type of facility from a site planning standpoint. Here is an actual overall kind of aerial rendering of the current design of the project. Just give you an idea that public parking is there up front. Staff parking is in the back. The project is fenced and it's behind secure gates. At least the back portion of the project is. Here's the floor plan. And depending on what color comes up on your screen, we'll just say yellow, purple, and blue, right? So that kind of yellow portion up front, that's the administrative portion of the facility, right? And it's divided by a corridor, which helps from a system standpoint, a controllability standpoint, a security standpoint. Everything relative to kind of the lab operations is in back. 10, 15 years ago when you were doing a facility like this, the way they would handle it is you've got an admin facility over here, you've got a morgue space and lab space over here, and they would connect it with an outside walkway. That's not necessary. We can control that with systems and using proper HVAC. And here in Florida, nobody wants to go outside and go down a walkway and spend extra dollars for that. In any ways, that's not really conducive. So this is truly a modern design. This is what you'll see throughout other districts in Florida. I'll just focus a couple of seconds on that front door where that black arrow is to the south at the yellow area. You walk into a main lobby. To the right is that kind of family room we talked about. And then to the left is something that we worked very hard with staff, facilities, with Dr. Aronica's staff to not create a facility that was designing a training room here and a break room here and another outdoor area here, or we created one area that can be dividable with walls, and that area is for internal training. It's for conference room space. It's for the break area. The intent is, instead of building, for example, 10,000 square feet, we did all that accomplished in 5,000 square feet. And it really doesn't affect the operations of the facility, but it saves dollars and it helps operationally your efficiencies. Moving on, this is.
May I ask you?
Yeah, absolutely.
On that?
Yes, sir.
Will that room be for press conferences if you had to have them there as well?
So that room right now is currently set, it's set for internal training. From a press conference standpoint.
We in general don't do press conferences for.
There's the answer. Thank you.
she's the expert. I'm just. This is an example board of the interior selections that were selected for the project. I will say that that picture on the upper right, that is just an example of colors that we used from another project. That is not a picture of this project, but you can see this is the color scheme, and I believe we offered up 3 or 4 different schemes with the team, and with the intent of you have to select materials that are maintenance friendly, right? We don't want to give you materials that you're replacing in 2 or 3 years, but the materials have to last a long time. They have to withstand a lot of abuse, a lot of cleaning, sanitizing, but they also have to meet, even though this building doesn't have any kind of ACA standards, you have health and safety standards for materials that, no seams in the flooring or the walls in the lab area, things like that. So we selected good, hardy materials that will last a long time, but are still maintenance friendly for facilities. This is an example of the exterior of the facility. The facility is constructed out of tilt wall. Not familiar, if you're not familiar with tilt wall is basically the project is poured in concrete panels on the ground, and then it's lifted up and formed into place. We do have a mix of kind of brick, white, and cream colors. This is a mix of what was necessary to build on the Indian River State College campus. We have had this vetted. We have appropriately gone through their process and for approvals for the exterior look. And then we also still want to, as I mentioned before, create an entry that is warm and welcoming to the public, but not being too cold. And I can tell you this is where the bulk of the exterior kind of dollars were spent, right, was that front door. The building, the rest of the facility is pretty much a box, right? And that's done on purpose, right? It doesn't need to be any more than that. We can still get nice architecture on the front, meet everybody's requirements, and be cost effective. And here's just kind of a night shot, right? We're just playing around, showing you some examples of what this might look like at night. Some of our next steps, the 100% construction documents were completed on time and submitted. They have been submitted also to all the counties, including yourselves, and I believe we're about 3 weeks into that kind of 30-day review period. Once that review period is complete, we'll feel comfortable in submitting the documents to the college. They are permitting the project. They have their own permitting department, and we'll submit there. And then the county is in the process right now of St. Lucie County. Apologize. Of going through the pre-qualification process. So the interlocal agreement, allows some flexibility in how we procure the project. We don't want to just do the traditional design bid and then or build and then hard bid of the project. We want some qualifications there. This is a highly technical project facility that you really want the contractor to kind of know what they're doing. So we're going to do the pre-qualification process where we'll shortlist based on quals a handful of contractors, and then the project will go out for what you would consider a traditional hard bid, but it would only be for those pre-qualified contractors. And construction, I don't have a specific date. We have this time frame we need to go through to get to that point of bidding. But once it starts, we anticipate this to be a 14 to 16 month project relative to construction. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions you might have. Obviously, Dr. Aronik is here for any technical questions that the architect doesn't know anything about, right? And again, we appreciate your time so much.
Mr. Capps.
As a new commissioner, I thought I would ask you a few things that go back in time regarding this whole effort. Let me ask you this. Can you comment on the need for a new facility? And when this effort began, and who compelled the construction of a new facility, those types of issues?
Dr. Aronika is going to take that one.
Hi, I'm Dr. Aronika. I do want to say that there was a task force that was put together, including a member of each of the counties, and there was Representative Trabulsi and Senator Harrell, and we all got together, State Attorney's Office, myself, and looked at our new what we're working in right now in our facility right now to see if that facility could be updated or if we needed to build a new facility. So that whole process has been done. The need was noted that where we are, and I would welcome you to come to where we are right now. Currently, we are in the county, or at the Indian River State College in Building I. The building was retrofitted originally for a medical examiner's office. It was never built that way. There are a lot of problems with the building. And we've discussed a lot of these in the past, and I'm happy to show you. Currently, 3 offices are completely closed and sealed off for mold remediation, so we are doing that as well. We have a lot of issues with our building, and I'd be happy to show you, and any of you, please come see our building where we are right now.
And then another issue is there are 4 counties that participate in the funding of this project.
That is correct.
Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee.
That is correct.
And each county does a percentage of the cost?
Yes, just like from our budget. Our budget is broken into percentage, and the way that the agreement was prior to me getting here, but what it is we look at how many deaths occur in your county and how many deaths occur in all 4, and there's a percentage. Then we also look at how many autopsies are done for your county and how many autopsies we've done total, and there's a percentage. Those 2 percentages are averaged, and then each county gets a percentage of the budget. So for last year, the totals for your county for 23, it was 21.28% for Martin, 25 for Indian River, 7.04 for Okeechobee, and 46.41 for St. Lucie County. That was in 23. And each year, we change those percentages based on those factors.
And then seems like I remember prior discussions about, for a while it seemed that this was a state responsibility, and it took the counties a while to arrive to the conclusion that the counties had to do this. And comment a little bit on how that all happened.
Yes, so there is the legislature that is written that says that the counties will provide a facility for the medical examiner to do the work. So that is what was decided, that was the interpretation of the way it was written. There has been some money that was able to be established for the PD&E, for the development of the plans. We were able to get some money through grant funding. So I know that we were able to get that. And I know from speaking with lots of other medical examiners in the state who are doing just what we're doing right now, the counties are the responsible entities that are providing the monies to each of these individual counties that are building their own new buildings around the state.
And then one other question. How does this benefit IRSC? Why are they willing to give you a piece of land to do this? Does it benefit them in some way?
So in the past, there was a relationship with them that we were on the county and we were on the land, and we would help them by having some of their students come over and view autopsies. There was some change in that. Recently, we asked for us to have appointments with the county, with the college, and we're working towards that right now to have appointments, but so that the medical examiners would be teaching at their offices or for their school. And that's sort of as on a volunteer basis, if the medical examiners wanted to do that, to help teach their public safety officers, incoming police academy, and those types of things. So we're working on that relationship. It isn't completely solidified at this time.
Okay, and then one other question that has to do with the funding, our contribution toward this. I think I read that we had already had the money saved up and that it wasn't going to have to come out of like our general fund or something.
Yeah, so we've been working on this for a number of years. We've had cost estimates from day one and adjusting them, and so we've been budgeting a small amount every year so that at this point in time, we would have our match for the project when it gets bid. And so no additional appropriations from the county. As long as it comes in to the estimate, we're covered.
And I want to just, for the record, I wanted to say that IRSC didn't give us the land. We have a 40-year lease with them at $1 a year, and it's renewable for another 40 years. Just for the record, I want to make sure that we weren't donated the land. And we do have some things built in to keep this on that budget that we have currently. We have some ad alternates that we're going to do. We're going to do some direct purchases, things of that nature. So we're going to be creative if we do get some higher bids that come in to keep it at the numbers that we've been projecting thus far. So.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes. Is there a School of Mortuary Science at IRSC?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I understand about the percentage, and I'm following what Commissioner Capps had asked. What is the dollar figure that Martin County has saved up for?
The current estimate is roughly $4 million for the county.
Between 4 and 5 million, yes.
Yep.
That's our share.
Yes.
The entire project is right at $22 million right now.
And Commissioner, our percentage of that is 22.42%.
Yes, I made the note there. Mm-hmm.
Anything further? Commissioner Campy.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I know, having been here since the beginning of the conversation, I know why it was necessary. Couple of things, Dr. Aronica, thank you. Can you give us an idea, you gave the percentages, can you give us an idea of how many decedents you examine in a year total, and then how many come from us?
So over the years, I have the stats here back till 2000.
I just think that maybe our residents have no real concept of how busy your office is.
Sure. 2021 was one of our busiest years, and we had 754 autopsies that were performed that year. And last year, it looks like 659. And a lot of that was some of the COVID-related, but also the narcotics-related and drug-related deaths had really spiked during that time. And what we've seen in our office, in the state and nationally, is that everywhere that the drug-related deaths are coming down. So that's good news. And so our numbers are coming down. As far as in Martin County, we're doing for the county back in 21, 157, and last year, 117.
That's autopsies?
Full autopsies, not just, also, we do bring individuals in for just examinations, so we do get a lot of people who are from out of state, snowbirds, who happen to die here, but they don't have a doctor to sign their death certificate. You must be licensed in Florida. So we take on that responsibility. So we will bring you into our facility or send one of our investigators out to view the body and look at it for us, and then we will have to issue the death certificate for them. So we're not counting those particular cases. Those are external exams. So I'm talking about just in full autopsy cases only, are what I have mentioned in the 659 number. So there's a lot of those. We also are responsible for all the cremation permits for our entire district. So if your loved one is going to be cremated and a doctor has signed that death certificate, we have to review the death certificate. If anywhere on there it says anything that looks non-natural, we have to get those records and catch those cases that might be something that someone has died from a homicide. And we've caught those where somebody has been shot in the past and they're quadriplegic. Well, that's still a homicide if they died as complications of quadriplegia. So we review all of those as well. And there are a lot of cremations in our jurisdiction. So our duties aren't just autopsies. They're external exams. They're also doing all these cremation approvals and record reviews. So there's a lot more to just, what we're doing as an office as a whole.
Thank you. Can I ask you, what year did you start here in the district?
I started here in May of 2020, and prior I was in Maryland for 18 years.
So you never had the opportunity to, or did you, to meet Dr. Middleman?
Well, I met him because I took over for him, so
But he retired.
Right. I spent a week sort of overlapping with him to learn the office. And then unfortunately, 6 months later, he did pass.
He happened to be a friend of mine. His son went to school with my daughter. He was a Palm City resident. I know he was there for 20 years. He came in, he died in 2020, but he was there in the office. I think he came in 2001 or 2, so was there for nearly 20 years. And when this first came up, I think the conversation was not that long after he had passed. Imagine, and he wasn't very old. I mean, should have had a long retirement. He retired, and like you said, 6 months later, had passed away sort of suddenly. I had made reference then, and I'd like to make a personal plea to you now, that the building, this beautiful brand-new building, be named in his honor, having have worked in the building for 20 years. Dr. Roger Middleman. So I think that that would be a beautiful honor for him and his family. Having known him personally, having been a Martin County resident, a Palm City resident, if IRSC's board is okay with that, and if you feel that maybe they're not, let me know, because I know some of their board of directors, or their, some of our residents are on their board. I think that that would be a nice honor. You only got to know him for a week, but I think his legacy has been something that you've had to, sort of share in since you've been there. And I appreciate all your efforts. Do you need action on this? We're just hearing it. I appreciate it. What number are we? You have to visit all 4 counties. What are?
You're actually number 2.
Okay, where'd you go?
We go to Okeechobee on Thursday, and then we, sometime in March 15th or something, we're in Indian River.
Okay, so you're on tour.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you very much.
And how does a body end up at the medical examiners for an autopsy?
In a van.
No, I mean, what's the criteria for a body going?
Absolutely. So we follow the Florida statute 40611, and it lists each case that becomes our case where we take jurisdiction. Mainly, it's cases that are non-natural. So any deaths that occur by violence, homicides, suicides, accidents, all of those will be because no other doctor in the state or jurisdiction can sign those death certificates but us. We have to be the ones signing anything non-natural. And we also do a lot of naturals as well. Young people, under the age of 50, 55, even 60, who don't have doctors who there's no one to sign their death certificate, they're not being followed, they come to us as well, and we will find out what occurred with them. Infants, children. So all of those types of cases, all Martin County Correctional Institute, we're responsible for all of those, Okeechobee Correctional Institute, and then, of course, all the jails here as well.
Okay. How many employees are employed at this facility?
Currently, there's approximately 20.
So explain to me why you need a 25,000 square foot building.
So that is to project out into that. Most of this is going to be autopsy space.
That's correct. We did do staffing analysis, and we looked at needs moving into those 20 and 30-year needs. And the major growth really wasn't in staff. It was more on space for the autopsy space, for the lab space. That's really the bulk of the facility.
And I will say that we need more people right now. We're 20 right now, but I need more staff. I don't have anywhere to put them. I cannot hire any more people. There's no more office space. We've completely used every corner. We had a break room that was converted into two offices. We made it for 2 people. And now the break room is in the back unfinished area. So we're using every ounce of space we can use. I need 2 more investigators, but I don't have the space to put them.
And who pays your operational expenses?
So all of our, we have a budget, and we come, you all approve it. And again, it's the same type of percentage from our budget. So it's in our budget.
So as you expand, we'll pay for our portion of your expansion.
Yes.
And the existing facility, what's going to be done with it? Where is it? What's going to be done with it?
It is Building I on the Indian River State College campus. We are renting that space. We have we pay $1 a year to the college, so that is their building, and we are just renters. And so I don't know what they plan on doing with it for sure, but they may be flattening it because the building behind us was also flattened. I think they will probably be building something new.
Okay. Commissioner Vargas?
What is your budget?
I don't have it right here, but I do know that it's approximately $4 million a year.
And how much do you project that to go up in this new building?
Those estimates I don't have. I don't have what's going to occur. It will go up.
Well, I'm certain, but do you have a percentage? Have you done a study? Have you thought about this? It's going to cost me this much to run this larger facility.
I have not. I don't know if we've done those
Somebody
things,
going
Scotty.
to do that?
It's not typical, but I think that's something that we can assist the county in.
Yeah, we can certainly look into it. We just know that right now, the building that they're in right now is so old, antiquated, needs a lot of repairs. So we're going to absorb, we're not going to have those repairs and things in the new facility. We have all LED lighting. We have, it's more of an efficient building. So we will save in those areas, but we could do a cost analysis of what that saving is versus the square footage.
I think it's also because you're going to hire more people. So what does it cost to have that person come in, train them, the benefits that they have, the salary increments, all of that to run a business? I think that's responsible.
Yes, and I have been talking with, I know St. Lucie County Administration about some of that, with Mr. Landry about our needs, but right now we know we can't do that, so we are trying to project out for what we're going to need when we move in. Looking into that, I was looking at just adding 3 people or 4 people as we move in. I don't think we're going to need any more doctors, which is what our big tickets are. That's where a lot of our funds go, are doctor salaries. I think our doctors are going to be okay for quite some time. I think we're going to need at least 2 more investigators. And investigators, their salaries are just around $50,000 a year, depending on their experience level. So we're looking at that. Now, as far as the building costs, that I just really, that part, I don't know that I have the specs on that.
Could bring some more information to us. That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did build the building. I mean, we designed the building to be very maintenance friendly. Roof's obviously not going to have issues like her roof does now. We're over there repairing that pretty much monthly, it feels like. So, but yes, and we did build a very efficient design in this particular facility, but we'll get some numbers for you. We'll let you know what because obviously there's a square footage increase, but there's also a reduction, an increase in efficiency as well with the newer building. So
I understand that, but the soft cost, the human resource cost, you want to employ people, what are their salaries, what are they going to be demanding?
So all of our human resources and all of our benefits, we work under the St. Lucie County umbrella. So they are the ones providing all those things to us. However, our budget does account for all of the monies that we pay into each person's salary. We then have benefits on there and, what their benefits package would be. We pay for that out of our budget. So, I mean, I don't know, as far as people, I see that being somewhere around, 150, 200,000 more a year for the extra added individuals.
Okay, so the salaries are paid by St. Lucie County, is that what I'm understanding?
No. The benefits packages, we fall under them for the package. So they provide us with the package. They're our fiscal agent. So we still pay them, or actually all of us do. Your 4 counties pay those fees, but we get a break on those, is what I'm saying, because we're not going out on our own as our own entity to get health insurance, is what I'm saying. We're getting health insurance under their umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So we pay 22% of your capital costs and 22% of your operational costs.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions?
None.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We now will return to public hearing number 3, which is an ear amendment to consider adoption of the transportation element.
Good morning, Commissioners. Samantha Lovelady for the record with the Growth Management Department. This is an amendment to, a text amendment to Chapter 5, which is the transportation element of the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, to implement the recommended changes of the adopted evaluation and appraisal report. And I have Mike Grzelka here to go over these changes with you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Michael Grzelka, the county engineer. Transportation element, it looks like a lot, but it's really not. A whole lot of changes going on there. A lot of it's just rearrangement of the articles, and so that every section in there follows the same procedural order and keeps it all straight. All the existing goals are preserved. The transportation network gathers the statements about the overall network. It adds resiliency objectives. Existing roadway, introduces the FDOT adopted qualitative level of service concept. It provides the descriptions of the context classifications and includes the vulnerability assessments. Those are kind of the new stuff that's in there. This is the new qualitative or context classifications, which basically changes all the classifications based on perception and drivability from a rural side all the way into a city limits. This is the way the DOT has changed everything. This Section 5.5 clarifies the long and short-term forecasting methods, and it removes redundant references to capacity, traffic analysis, and level of service in Section 5.2. The Goal 5.3 updates the qualitative level of service targets and provides an applicant to pay or construct its proportionate share. The existing pathways reflects the current facilities and crash mitigation strategies and moves references to planning efforts to Section 5.6A. A lot of these are just clean up stuff where we're moving stuff around. Nothing's really, a lot of it's not new, and it's just being updated. Pathway needs describes efforts used to prioritize future projects and introduces and provides descriptions of FDOT adopted level of traffic stress concepts, which is for pathways and cyclists. This is the new concept of how stressful the paths are that the residents are using, either bicycling or walking. We are not adopting any type of a level of service of it. This is a tool that we can utilize to evaluate which areas we need to improve upon and which ones we could, are still usable the way they are. Goal 5.4 clarifies jurisdiction on the state roadways, and again, it adds policy to establish level of traffic stress targets. Existing transit, it removes the redundant references to planning efforts and identifies the services currently offered, clarifies the planning efforts, and updates the level of service target methodologies. It adds policy to establish level of service targets. On the airports, updates descriptions of the facilities and services provided at public use airports, updates the 2023 master plan, and update and operations forecast data, and updates the goals to the current facilities. The rail is basically didn't have a whole lot in it before. It talks about updating the passenger rail now being added. The second rail as well, the single track over the St. Lucie River, and the future needs of, the new bridge and things like that is all provided for in this section. The waterways, same thing with the waterways. There wasn't a whole lot in it before. There's really not a lot new or anything added into it. It just recognizes, supports, and maintains, the marine transportation as a driver of local economics, recreation, and enjoyment. The figures have been reordered to be consistent with the existing conditions and the future needs and the goals. The existing conditions and future needs have been updated. Several amendments to the functional classification are proposed. Features are, just wrap things up. Features are ordered consistently now, so you can jump from one section to the next and follow through where everything is lined up. Existing conditions and future needs are updated for consistency with statute, studies, and guidance. The existing goals are all preserved, and the new goals were added for the roads and waterways. So, with that, I guess I'll open it up for any questions, or you want to?
I'm good.
Questions? Commissioner Heatherington?
I just have a simple question. On, I think, page 8 of 10, you list a number of roadways where we're changing the classification. Is that via, we talked about this briefly, traffic analysis or another methodology to change the classification, say from major to minor? Some of them are downgraded, it looks like, and some of them go from local to minor or a major to local. And all of them make sense to me why you're doing it. I just wondered what the methodology of that classification is.
We looked at the roads, as a whole and what it's being utilized as for the most part. I mean, like we talked about, there's sections of roads that were collectors that are being downgraded to rural because they're not acting as collectors. They're South Street, take that for example. It's a collector between, Savannah Road and Skyline Drive, but the section from Skyline Drive to the dead end is not a collector. It's a local road because it only serves the 4 or 5 houses that are down there. There's a bunch of those kind of streets that we did to downgrade those. There's ones that are inside gated communities that were collectors that really shouldn't be because they're in behind a gate. I mean, they're a local road. And so we were just doing cleanup on that kind of stuff for the most part.
All right, thank you.
You eliminated a table on page 455, which is characteristics of levels of service, and instead replaced it with one that's much more simplistic and not as detailed, and doesn't provide as accurate a narrative. Why? It's on 455, if that's helpful.
Is this the table you're speaking of?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, in mine it's outlined, but yes, that's the one that's been eliminated, and the preceding page is the new one, which is,
The qualitative, the context classification stuff. That's the new DOT classification system that they've implemented, and that's the way they're classifying everything. So we're being consistent with DOT on the classifications. They actually came and gave us a preliminary map where they classified all of our roads. We are in the process with them telling them, back up, let's put this on brakes because, they were classifying a lot of our, some of our rural roads as more agricultural roads as opposed to so we're working with them right now, going back and forth, trying to get them, because someone sitting in an office in Fort Lauderdale doesn't know how operations work up here. So that's just all to be consistent with the new regulations and the new classifications that the DOT has implemented.
okay, I think that the existing one is way more helpful. And also, transportation concurrency exception areas, do you have those mapped out?
I do not know if we have them mapped.
We used to. Why don't we any longer?
I personally don't know. I can find out for you, but most of the concurrency exception areas are like in the CRAs, and
Are they in all the CRAs? Or are we saying that the CRAs are allowed to have failing roadways because they're CRAs? The city has taken that position. They say that their roads are pretty much all TCEAs, but are we adopting the same sort of we give up in our CRAs?
Commissioners, as I recall, each road that had a transportation concurrency area had its limits specifically identified and was adopted by the board as opposed to just a blanket area. For instance, Dixie Highway through Salerno has been a transportation concurrency exception area to prevent it from being a 4-lane facility. So that's the one I'm aware of. I can't think of.
You used to have to approve them,
Yes, you do.
but where's that map? Where's that approval? Where are those transportation concurrency exception areas in the county now? I want to know where we've given up,
Okay.
We'll find out.
and I think that should be in here.
okay.
And transit, we are using existing conditions, and I get that, but we are really looking at improving transit, and does this give us enough flexibility to abandon our current transit plans for a variety of new transit plans? Microtransit isn't mentioned. I mean, these are things that the MPO is looking at, we're studying, but I don't know that there's the flexibility in here that maybe it ties our hands to big buses, which I don't want my hands tied to big buses anymore.
Okay,
I don't believe the plan limits the type of service you're providing.
About the fixed routes.
But and the plan always has. So it always has talked about providing some sort of transit. I think if, I would suggest that we leave the plan as it is until you make a change and we can amend the comp plan to deal with the change. But I think there is a minimal commitment to transit in the plan. And I think your transit agency is looking to have a new vendor and is working with you all on providing options on how to deliver public transportation efficiently. It's still in the works.
As long as we have some flexibility.
Yes.
Feel that there's language in there sufficient to have that flexibility?
I do. I think the language is sufficient to have you have flexibility. I think if you wanted to say, we're not going to provide public transit at all, we'll need to amend the comp plan and take it out. But I don't think today is the day to do that.
I agree we need to have, because we are looking at other options, the ability to have flexibility.
Yes, I believe the ability is there because the language is essentially the same, and we started out with a paratransit facility. We have a fixed route facility, and we can adopt it in the future to make changes. But we still have a public transit operation that is going to stay in operation for the time being.
5.4B is analysis and LOS standards, which has been stricken. Where is that reproduced? 5.4B.
There it is. You just passed it.
That's being,
Then stricken, but below that was the new stuff.
okay,
Well, that's 5.5.
yeah.
So predicting,
That's the section. Are you talking about policy?
no, she's right there.
Yes, 5.4B is LOS standards. And I just need to know where the new LOS standards are. Since, if these are stricken, where are they reproduced?
Let me see.
Samantha, Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director for the record. So Samantha, I think you can go to the staff report. I believe it's page 4 of 10. That has the chart.
That's what we were looking, yeah.
Oh,
We were trying, we were looking on the paper copy, trying to figure out where everything got moved.
Well, it says it's 5.5A, but that's not the case.
Five 5.5B proposed says roadways not meeting the LOS targets.
The staff report says that 5.4B is proposed in 5.5A, but it's not. So. You want to break for lunch and come back and take this up?
Please.
Are we good with that? Okay. Is that good? Are everybody's okay with that?
Sure.
See you back at 1:30.